Welcome, everybody, to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Wishes Mama. And on today's episode of Mom Street USA, we are going to be discussing Disney collectibles and Disney collections and kind of taking it an approach of what are some good options for maybe some younger members of your family, some kiddos that might want to get into doing some different collections. So, we're going to talk about just a few. We're not going to go through everything that you could possibly collect because that we would be here all night. But we are going to talk about just a few collection ideas that you might want to consider for your younger kiddo or maybe like a preteen kiddo that's kind of just getting into that space of collectibles and wanting to start that. So I'm really excited to bring you some different information that I found and kind of compile it all in one place to kind of get you thinking about what might be good for your particular situation. So, what types of collections do we see in the Disney theme park universe space? There are a ton. So, like I said, we're not going to talk about all of them, but we are going to talk about quite a few of them. And I am going to start with kind of a big one. So, the first one that I'm going to jump in to for this episode is pin collecting. This is probably one of the most popular collections that we see in the Disney parks. There are so many different ways that you can collect pins, so many different things that you can do with your pins to display them. The thing that's nice about pin collecting is that it's really a great option for almost everybody, right? Any age can look at a pin and say, "Oh, I really like that." Or, we get the ability to trade them in the parks, which is super fun. This year is, I believe, the 25th anniversary of pin trading in the Disney parks. So, I know especially at Walt Disney World, we've seen kind of an uptick of those pin boards and cast members wearing their lanyards with pins on them to do pin trading with those as well. Um, the one downfall to pin trading is that this is one of those collections that can easily break the bank, right? You have those specialty pins and the mystery packs and things like that that can really be expensive. Pins start, generally speaking, if you're looking full retail price, around $15 per pin. Again, prices will vary depending on what you're looking at. But some of those, mystery packs or blind bags, whatever you want to call them, can be quite a bit more expensive. So this is by no means an a inexpensive collection to start, but it is a really fun one because it's got such an interactive piece to it, especially if you're going to be down in the parks frequently. One thing that I will mention about this is that you can sometimes find pins on sale. The outlets are a good place to go if you've got a Disney outlet near you. Sometimes online on Disney Store, they have them. However, those ones are subject to shipping costs. So you got to kind of see what you can do to maybe piggyback that on another order that you might be making on there. It just really depends on what kind of pins you're looking for and what brands of pins and what characters. There's so many different things you can do because there are lounge fly pins. There are pins that you can find at places like Box Lunch and Hot Topic, and all of those places also sell them. So lots of different places that you can get them. The other downfall to this is not only cost, but also it's really easy to get kind of trapped into. If you're looking online for pins, you can come across a lot of faked pins, pins that are from, not directly from Disney, that are meant to look like the pins that are directly from Disney. So that's a little tricky when you're first getting into it. So I always suggest, if you are going to start a pin collecting hobby, or if you and your kiddo want to start doing pin trading, that you always buy directly from Disney or buy something that is in package with the Disney name to kind of give you a better idea of what you're looking for authentic pins. And we're not going to go into what that is and how to tell and things like that, but there's lots of information out there online for you to be able to tell what it is that you need to be looking for. I am fortunate that I have a Disney outlet near my house, and I this collecting pins is actually something that my husband and I recently decided we wanted to let our kiddos do some pin trading on our upcoming trip. So I have been frequenting our Disney outlet looking for more inexpensive and clearance pins that my kids can then take to the parks with us on our trip, and they'll be able to trade for maybe another pin that they like. So the pins that I'm buying are not necessarily going to be their favorite characters or something that they may find on a pin board that they would pick out, but it's going to be one that'll give them something to start with that then we can go and trade. So the purpose of our pin collecting is really to be able to trade for different things that they want. So for example, this is a pin that I just bought literally a week ago at our outlet. It's this cute little Yzma pin from Emperor's New Groove, originally marked at $14.99, but it was on clearance for $9.98, and they were running a deal for 30% off. So it was really a good deal. And I grabbed a couple other pin sets that were on sale as well. So that way my kids will have a few each to start with to then be able to trade with. So carrying pins in the parks, there's a lot of different options that you can do for that. There are lanyards. That's kind of the standard way that you see a lot of people carrying their pins or displaying their pins as they're walking around the Disney parks. And that's where you'll find a lot of cast members, if they're willing to trade. They'll have them on a lanyard typically, and sometimes they'll have like these little cloth books at the bottom of their lanyards where they will keep any extras that maybe don't fit on their lanyard, things like that, depending on what kind of a role the cast member is in. But they make all sorts of really neat pin display bags or pin trading bags that you can take into the parks. They have pin folios that are like a rubbery material that you can stick the pins straight through. Display books that feel almost like a photo album that you can use. Lots of different ways that you can display and carry those in the parks, especially if you're going to be trading. Do keep in mind for your kiddos that if they're wanting to just wear their pins and not trade, you might need to have a conversation with them about kind of what the expectation is in the parks with that. Because typically, if you're walking around wearing pins, chances are good that somebody may ask if you're wanting to trade. So just might want to prep your kiddo for that, depending on what they are wanting to do with their pins. Um, so not only can you have your pins in the parks, but also you want a place to store them at home, right? You want to display them. You want to be able to see them and look at them. So there are so many different options of storing them at home. One of my favorite options is just simply any sort of cork board. That's what I do for the little collection that I've started. Is I just have like I think it's a hexagon cork board that I bought off of Amazon in a pack, and my kids have some in their rooms to display their artwork, and I use one in my room to push my pins back through. So that is one easy way to do it. You can purchase all sorts of different displays in on Etsy or on Amazon. You can do like acrylic displays that are like shaped like Mickey heads, or some people will do like banners so that they can hang on their wall. And I've seen ones where it's got like their family name like stitched in on it. So tons of different ways that you can do. Those are just a few. Lots of ideas online if you're looking for ways to display your pins whenever you have them at home. And I know a lot of people will display their keepers, right? Or their pins that they're going to keep that they're not going to trade. And then they may keep their traders on a rubber pin folio or in a bag or something that they know, when they do visit the parks, they can take it and grab it and take it into the parks with them. And as far as where you can trade in the parks, which I should have mentioned this earlier, but that's okay. There are so many places in the parks that you can trade: shops, restaurants, cast members, all of those types of things. You can definitely trade with pretty much anybody that's walking around the parks that's got a pin on. I will also mention, if you've got a kiddo that's going to be carrying their pins, make sure whatever it is that they are carrying has their name on it or some sort of an identification. That way, if it accidentally gets lost or dropped or left behind, somebody can hopefully find you, or it can make its way to Lost and Found and you can find it from there. Pins are such a popular collection that unfortunately a lot of lost pins never make their way back to their owners. So make sure whatever you're storing and keeping your pins in, that you have your information on it somewhere so that that doesn't happen to you. Just a word of wisdom from someone who's seen that happen in the parks and read about it before. So that in a very brief nutshell is kind of the idea of pin trading. Again, we're going to talk about lots of different collections in this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and hop on to the next one. And this is another kind of big category. And I'm just going to touch on a few, just a few, but we're going to talk a little bit about Disney plush and plushies and the collection that could become of Disney plushies. So for the sake of this episode, I'm going to focus on a few very specific types of plushies that the Disney parks sell. I'm not talking about just generic Disney stuffed animals because there are so many that you could have. Believe me, I have a gigantic armful of plushies upstairs in my room that are all Disney. Ask my husband, he has told me that I'm not allowed to buy anymore. So I get the plushie thing. But I'm going to talk about just a few different categories that you might want to look into starting a collection for your kiddos. And most of these are kind of smaller size plush that are really good for little hands. So if you're looking at, even early elementary or preschool age and a little bit older, these are really good for that kind of age range. So with the plushies, again, there are so many different options. I'm going to talk about a few. Um, Keep in mind with when we're talking cost, because we talked about cost a little bit with pins, with cost for the plushies, the size of it is going to greatly affect the price, and also the collection value is going to affect the price a little bit. So, first ones that we're going to talk about are Munchlings. Now, Munchlings are a newer plush that were released in the Disney parks for the last like 3-4 years, maybe. They are generally speaking food themed Disney character plush, which sounds like a very eclectic sentence when you put it together. But basically, think about a lot of desserts. A lot of them are desserts. Some of them are some other food items as well, and they make them look like little animals that are the Disney characters. Right? Some of them, previously, all of them were scented, but now only some of them are. A handful of them, not every one of them, are scented anymore. Some of them come in mystery packs. We talked about mystery packs with pins. Munchlings also come in mystery packs where there's like 5 or 10 different characters that you might pull out. And there have been several different editions that have been released. So some are like not available in stores anymore. And some of them, because they're an older edition, you can find them for cheaper and clearance on places like the Disney Store or in places like the Outlets Character Warehouse, which is one of the big outlets down in Disney or in Disney World in Orlando, those types of things. So with the Munchlings, there are some that are really small in size, and there are some that range as big as me, basically. So again, the size really affects that. Generally speaking, the smaller ones are around 10 to 15. The bigger ones are going to be upwards of 50, 60, 70, depending on the size. So this is an example of one that I have. This is my Chubby Munchling. Yes, he's still in his box because he's happy living in there. So that way my children don't grab him and claim him for their own because they will. So he is an orange cream taffy Chubby with candies. So you can see where they kind of get the food aspect of it. And there are so many different characters that they do for Munchlings. I didn't even name them all because there have been so many, but you see a lot of the Fab Five. You see some specialty characters, all sorts of different options that you have with those. So that is an option if you want to be looking at plushies. Again, I like that really small size. Maybe not ideal for carrying around in the parks, but they're great for little hands to have as an option for something that they can collect that is Disney, but has a little bit of a fun spin on it, kind of. Another plushie option that Disney sells, and sadly, this one we're not really sure if it's going to stick around too much longer, but it's a super fun one, and that is the Nuimos. So Nuimos are small dolls that have kind of like stiffer limbs, and they have magnetic hands, which are super fun. They have tons of characters for Nuimos: princesses, Star Wars, the Sensational Six, Angel and Stitch. They have clothes and accessories. The clothes and accessories are not as much available as they used to be, but they are out there. They do have accessories and different clothes and things like you can have for them. So this is my little Stitch. little Nuimo. He does have magnetic hands, if I can get them to his backpack is kind of preventing him from being able to stick his hands together right now. So he's got a little Pride Spirit jersey on and a little Loungefly backpack. That is my little accessories for him. So I have Stitch and I have Lilo, and my kids have a ton. I think my daughter has all of the princesses that were out as of a couple years, maybe a year or so ago. So I know she has Rapunzel and Ariel, and I think she has Belle too. And then my son has, let me think about it. He has a Mickey because Mickey is his favorite. And I want to say he has the Hulk as one of his other ones. So lots of different characters. That is in a nutshell kind of what Nuimos are. And again, there are so many different characters and things that you can find. The prices typically are 20 to 22 for those. So it's a pretty small plushie for that price. You can occasionally find them on sale, but it doesn't happen very often. There used to be a lot more offerings as far as clothes and accessories. We don't see them as much anymore. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens with those as we go here in the next few months and years. But that is an option as well for plushies. Another one of the new options for plushies are these mini mix-its is what they're called, and these are brand new in the parks. I do not have one to show you. I'm so sorry, but it's very similar in size to the Nuimo that I was just showing you, but they come with attractions themed hats, which are like Velcro under their chins, and they are about $20. And so far, the characters that they have for those are Mickey, Minnie, Pluto, Donald. They had Angel and Stitch around Valentine's Day, and they just released Pooh and Piglet for Easter this year. So those are some options that they have, and it's like they've got all sorts of really cute little hats. The nice thing about these is they have a Velcro strap on the back. And the purpose of that is a lot of people like to attach them to their park bags. So that way their little plushy friend can come along with them for the day as they are walking around the parks and doing all their rides and things like that. A lot of people will take these Nuimos and kind of like where you see my backpack strap here, they'll put a hair tie and they'll secure that around the strap of their bag and put it there. That is a really nice way to keep your Nuimo with you during the day. But these new mini mix-its do have a Velcro strap that kind of serves that purpose as well, which is a really nice option. So that is a brand new offering. Again, we don't know what characters they're going to come out with. We don't know what they're going to keep. We don't know what they're going to keep around just for a little while. So you never really know for sure with Disney and merchandise, right? But for the current time, that's probably a pretty good one to look into if you want to do some plushie collecting for your little kiddos because they are a fairly new offering that they have in the parks. Now, the last one that I'm going to talk about, again, I'm not talking about all the different possible plushies. There are Bigfoot plushies, there are Cuddlies plushies, there are princess dolls, there are all sorts of other ones as well. The last one that I'm going to talk about for the sake of this episode are shoulder plushes. So shoulder plushes are sold primarily in the parks. They're sold to be exactly what they sound like. They are little shoulder pals that sit on your shoulder, and they come with a magnetic base to be able to attach to sit on your shoulder. So this is my Chubby. If you haven't noticed the theme, I had a Chubby munchling. I have Chubby ears on tonight. He might be one of my favorite characters. But you can see this is the magnetic base. So basically this goes, if I can get my hair out of the way, this goes under here. They're a little tricky to kind of get them oriented in the direction that you want them to be. But that is the purpose of the shoulder pal, right? Is to be able to sit on your shoulder. I often do see a lot of people still attaching these guys with the hair tie method like I just talked about because the magnet is decent on most of these. It would make me nervous on like a ride. I don't know that I would ever wear a shoulder pal on a ride because I would be afraid that it would fall off during the ride because I don't know how attraction proof, the magnets are. But they have so many fun characters: Figment, Groot, Remy, Yoda, Orange Bird. They have a ton of Inside Out characters. They've got Porgs, they've got Bruni from Frozen, Pascal, they've got Chip from Beauty and the Beast. Lots of different options. So those are super cute, and they're always kind of coming out with new ones for that. Like I think, for example, the orange bird one typically shows up during Flower and Garden. I don't know that he's there year round typically. He's only just there during Flower and Garden. So you get kind of some different options there with the shoulder little pals. So those are a really fun option. Again, you can hold on to the magnet yourself and give your kiddo just this. The other fun thing is if you let them have it without the base, they can see what's magnetic in the parks as they're walking through queues, and then you can just wash it after you're done. So that is a really good option for a plush. These typically will run you around 25. Again, that's just kind of your standard price for this size of plush for the collectible plush at Disney, when it comes to this. So again, that is another option for shoulder pals. So that is kind of the gist of different plushies. Again, not the entire list of plushies if we're talking about different collectible options. There are a ton of others that you can look at depending on what your kiddo likes. But we're going to move on for now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about another massive collection that we see tons of Disney fans collecting, and that is these lovely ears atop of my head. So let's talk about Disney ears, Minnie ears, Mickey ears, whatever you want to call them. Let's talk about the ears. There are so many different options and designs when it comes to collecting ears. You have solid colored ears, you have sequin ears, you have Disney bounding ears, you have character ears, you have, again, I cannot list all of them. It is impossible to list all of them. But there are so many different options. One of the newer options that they have is also that Disney has started making them with a removable bow, which is nice. So you get most ears are going to look like this. They're going to have the ears, they're going to have a bow. Sometimes they have a character or a pendant or something in the middle. Sometimes they don't. But now some of them you can take the bow off, and I'll show you one of those pairs here in just a minute if you are currently watching on, whatever platform it is. If you can see me in video, I'll show you here just in a moment. But there are lots of different companies that also make these that Disney has partnerships with. So there are obviously ones that are just Disney brand, but then there are a lot that are Loungefly. That's another brand that you're going to see a lot of on ears. But then you also have like the really high end ears that are like the Dooney and Burke ears. Vera Wang makes ears. So there's lots of really high end quality ears. We're not going to talk about those as much tonight because we're talking more about collectibles for your kids. Chances are good you're not going to be purchasing $500 ears for your kiddos to collect. Now, if you are, more power to you. I'm proud of you that you have that budget to be able to do that. But typically speaking, when we're talking about littles, you're not going to be looking at those types of ears. We're going to be sticking to kind of the standards here. So full retail cost of most ears, again, this is kind of a general pricing, is going to range anywhere from $30 to $45 per pair for your Disney and your Loungefly ears, typically speaking. Some are a little bit more, typically not any less than 30 at full retail. Now, there are places that you can get discounted ears. Disney Store often has sales on some of their ears that are older, from older collections or older styles that maybe they just don't have as much of, so they'll put them on sale or on clearance. You can also find Disney ears at places like Burlington. So if you have a Burlington near you, they often will get overstock from the Disney parks, and you can find ears. I typically find them in the toy section or in the girls section where like all the headbands and stuff are. So I've been very lucky to find ears there before. Um, Again, Disney outlets, if you've got one near you. Character Warehouse, which is an outlet I mentioned a little bit earlier. There are two different locations of Character Warehouse down in Orlando. And they get, again, overstock of Disney merch. So it's not just ears, it's tons of different stuff, but that would be a place that you could look if you've got time outside of the parks and you're going to be visiting down in the Orlando area. That would be a really good place to look for some discounted ears. You can also find some on resale. So if you're looking places like Mercari, eBay, Poshmark, those types of places. Occasionally, you can find ears on there as well. There are also tons of Etsy sellers that will sell Disney-themed ears, and you can sometimes get them a little bit more niche and more customized if you go that route. So a couple ears that I just grabbed off my wall to bring down, to show you guys. So my Chubby ears that I'm wearing here. Now these ears are let me don't mind my hair being a mess. These are Disney ears because if they are not, you will see this little Loungefly tag on the side. So the Loungefly ears are going to run you typically about $10 more than your standard Disney ears. So these are Disney Parks ears. That is one of my pairs that I have. Again, the Loungefly option, you're typically gonna see this little Loungefly metal, plate on the side with it you'll see them, you'll see it look very familiar to if you're used to, like, other Loungefly bags. This one also has the option to take the bow off. It's just got a little snap that wraps around, so you can wear it without the bow, and then the bow again just is there as an option if you wanted to use that. And then the other pair of ears that I brought down, these are Disney Parks ears, but this is a pair I bought at Burlington probably, oh gosh, 5 years ago maybe. So this pair completely came from Burlington. It was an overstock option. It is a Disney Parks option. So I think those ears probably cost me less than $10. So if you know what you're looking for and you have access to some of these places to find them, you can find cheaper Disney ears, Mickey ears, Minnie ears, whatever you want to call them. You can find them at these places. So again, this collection can be very pricey, but there are lots of options that will help make it not quite as pricey, if that makes sense. And again, tons of different ways you can display them. I see lots of people use like frames on the wall to display. I just use either command strips or nails to display them on our wall. Lots of different ways you can do that. People get like headband rack holders where you can kind of uh, stack them upright like this kind of on there as well. So lots of different options for ears if that's something you want to do. And the great part about this is that they're so fun to wear in the parks when you go. So if you are a family that gets to go to the parks frequently, these are a really great option because they become super practical when you go down to the parks. My kiddos each have, I think my son has 3 different sets of ears. My daughter, I think I've found her. Oh, another place I didn't even mention is that Target has cheaper ears and so does Sam's Club. So both of those places you can find Disney ears that are for a little bit cheaper that are typically geared more towards little kids, which is nice. But my daughter has a couple pairs of Christmas ears that I found her before our last family trip we took when it was going to be Christmas time from Target. And she's got a couple sets of Disney ears as well. And again, all of these have been either found for a sale or been gifted. There's lots of different things that you can do to kind of help offset that one to make it not so expensive. And that is one collection that I do have, if you couldn't tell from listening to me talk about it. Ears is the one thing that I kind of unintentionally started collecting because I kept finding them for really good deals and I couldn't turn it down. So it became an unintentional collection of mine to have about a little over 30, I think, pairs of ears right now. So not a massive collection. There are some people who have hundreds, but that is where I'm at for now when it comes to my ear collection. So again, in a nutshell, that's kind of ear collecting if you choose to do that. I think it's a great option for like mid to older elementary and preteen because I think it's fun to theme outfits around. It's fun to wear them in the parks. There's lots of different things that you can do, once they're old enough to actually wear them whenever you go to the parks. So that would be my suggestion for that. Okay. This is going to directly relate to the next one that we're talking about. We were just talking about Loungefly ears. So before I get too much further ahead of myself, let's talk about Loungeflies. Tons of different options again for designs when it comes to Loungefly bags. Very similar in the way that you have all of these different variations on ears where it's like solid colored and sequins and Disney bounding and characters and attraction themed and all of that. All of that applies to Loungefly bags as well. They also offer a lot of different styles for Loungeflies. The typical one that you hear about is their mini backpack style. That is the one that you will see most often, but they also offer crossbodies. They also offer fanny packs. They have a lot of different other styles. They have wallets and clutches and all sorts of other things, right? Under the Loungefly brand. And they do all sorts of different pop culture things. So if you're looking for Marvel, if you're looking for Star Wars, all of that, they've got you covered there as well. And oftentimes they do release things in collections. So they will release matching ears and a Loungefly bag, as well as sometimes like a sweatshirt or a crossbody or a wallet that matches with that as well. So they do a lot of collection releases when it comes to Loungefly. The backpacks are pricey, I'm not gonna lie to you. They typically run anywhere from 80 to 100 for your standard kind of design, but again, you can find those specialty ones that are gonna be more expensive than that, but generally you're looking in the 80 to $100 range, full value for those Loungefly backpacks. Now, just a note that you can also find similar backpacks for a lot cheaper. So if you're just looking for like cute little backpacks to theme outfits around or backpacks to match the ears, uh, you can find Funko Pop bags that are very similar, and you can find just some generic Disney or Box Lunch or Star Wars or Marvel bags as well that are just generic as well. So keep that in mind depending on what the purpose of what you're looking for. Um, when it comes to collections like this. So again, keep that in mind. Another place that I haven't mentioned about discount Disney stuff is you can find discounted Loungefly bags, sometimes at TJ Maxx and Marshalls. So I have had some luck finding quite a few different styles, but it's not going to be every style because again, it's like the overstock that they weren't really selling in the parks, or they maybe ordered too many of or had too much of in their stock rooms that they ship out. So it really depends on what you're looking for and how particular you're being when it comes to that. And when you find them at these places like TJ Maxx, you're going to be looking around $35 to $45. So definitely a good discount if that's something that you're wanting to invest in and something that you're wanting to start a collection of. That would be where I would start. And I would check out different local stores in your area to see what different options they have. So, Loungefly backpacks. This is one of mine that I have. I have just a few, but this is one of my Stitch ones that I have. I have several Stitch ones because he's one of my favorite characters. My favorite part about this one is that Scrump pops up and down, which I think is just so fun. So this is what they look like. The other thing that a lot of people like for these is they typically have a super fun pattern on the inside. So you can see that the pattern of the print on the fabric is themed on the inside. And that's something that Loungefly is like kind of known for. So that again, kind of rundown of Loungeflies and what they are. Are they a good option for your kiddo? Maybe, maybe not. At the end of this episode, I'm going to run down kind of my top suggestions. But Loungeflies are a little pricey, and you really have to take care of them to make them last. So something to consider when you're looking at those. Again, maybe older teens, preteens, and up would be a really great suggestion to maybe start Loungeflies. And all of these are great for if you are looking for a birthday gift or a Christmas gift, or, have them pick out a few that they like and ask grandma and grandpa or aunt and uncle to get them one, depending on what you guys typically spend in budget and things like that. So that's an option. If you're looking at some of these pricier ones, those are all really great ways to help your kiddo build their collection without you having to pay out of pocket for every single one that they want to collect. Make a list, spread the love, right? So those are some of the more pricey options when it comes to collections. Let's shift gears now and talk about maybe something that's a little bit less expensive when it comes to collections that are Disney related. And that is something that you can find at the Disney parks, Disney World and Disneyland, and those are pressed pennies. This is not something that I've ever collected. I actually don't even have any that I can show you, but basically what it is imagine a penny that has been pressed flat into an oval and it's got an imprint on it. And that imprint could be a character, it could be a ride, it could be an area of the parks, lots of different things that you can find. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of designs when it comes to pressed pennies. So at Disney World, you can find tons of machines. They are available in all 4 theme parks, both water parks, Disney Springs, most of the resorts, but not all. You can find them at the mini golf courses and at the ESPN Wild World of Sports. So all of those options have pressed pennies for you. And typically in the parks, you're going to find anywhere from 4 to 10 machines in the parks, depending on what park you're in and what you're looking for. Out at Disneyland, you can find machines in both parks, Downtown Disney, and in all 3 of the true Disneyland resorts out there at Disneyland. Now, previously, these machines only took coins. So you would hear of a lot of people saving their quarters and pennies to be able to take them to the parks to do the press penny machines. But since cash has become less of a preferred payment option, almost all of these now will take cash and cards. There are very few that will still only take cash, if I'm remembering correctly, but that could have even changed since I last looked at it. Do keep in mind that if you're someone who's wearing a Magic Band and paying a lot with that, they do not accept Magic Band payments on pressed penny machines, which I found out in my research, which I thought was interesting. But they are typically $1 per penny. So yes, I know you're paying $1 for a cent, but it's a fun souvenir. And relatively speaking, when we were just talking about these ears being $45, paying $1 for a little pressed penny is a pretty good deal if you ask me. Some machines, well, all machines will have more than one character or design option that you can do. And typically they'll offer a deal for like the entire machine's worth of designs. So like $5 for 8 or $3 for 5 or whatever it may be, depending on the machine. And every machine is going to have something different. So it's kind of a fun little like scavenger hunt as well with your kids as you're running around. Um, I would highly suggest with this that you set a limit of how many pressed pennies you're going to let them get, because it could very easily be like, "Oh, yeah, it's just $1. It's just $1. It's just $1." And then $30 later, you've got 30 pressed pennies. So keep in mind maybe how many you want to allow and what your budget looks like for your particular pressed penny adventure that you plan to go on. Again, tons of different characters and designs, princesses, the Fab Five, unique characters and landmarks in the parks. Um, we hear a lot about pressed pennies when areas or attractions go away. Like, for example, when Splash Mountain closed to become Tiana's Bayou Adventure, we heard a lot about the Tiana's or the Splash Mountain pressed penny ones in the machine that was over there. Same for like when Dinoland closed. There's lots of different that's where we hear about them the most. New press pennies or ones of attractions that are closing is when we hear about them the most. So they do have some specialty ones and some that are not available anymore as well. And there are lots of different ways that you can store them. They do have these really cool books that work. It reminds me of, if anyone is from the same era that I am from, when they released all of the state quarters and we all went around collecting all of the state quarters and put them in books, pressed penny books. They have them that look almost identical to that, where they've got the little slots that you can put so many in. And then it folds up nicely and that can fit in a bag or a backpack as you're walking around the parks, or it can live in your room and you can have, a little container of some sort that you keep them in your park bag to then transfer them into the book in your room if your book is getting a little full and maybe a little heavier than what you want to carry around in the parks with you. And those press penny books really can depend on pricing wise can depend on what style you're looking for and how many pennies they're going to hold. You can find smaller cheap ones for about $10 online. Or you have some of the bigger ones that you can find for about 30. So again, really just depends on your budget, but I think this is a really fun, lower budget option for something that you can do in the parks together as well to start this kind of either family collection or help your kiddo with their collection as well with that. Another really low budget option for a collection we actually talked recently about in one of our episodes, and that is character signatures. So I know a lot of families and kiddos that go to the parks that like to get character signatures, but they don't often think about it as a collection. And it is 100% a collection of character signatures when you do that in autograph books or lots of different ways that you can do that. So if you want like my full rundown of character meets and getting signatures, episode 79 of Mom Street is the one that you're looking for that. We did talk in that episode all about different things when it comes to characters, but I'm going to give you just a brief review in case you missed it. So most characters in the parks will sign. Some will present you with like a pre-signed little card that they have, depending on the character and whether or not they're able to physically sign during the meet the character and whether or not they're able to physically sign during the meet and greet. Um, there are so many options for how to collect character signatures in your books. You can find books online before you go or in the parks. You can also use a ton of other items as well. Photo mats, hats, scarves, wooden ornaments, all of that. Again, episode 79, we talked about all of those different options and some really great ideas for that. And again, just a note that we've talked about before that the best markers, depending on what you're having them sign, are those big clickable, click top Sharpie markers for the characters to sign. It's just the easiest for them to handle. But if you're someone that gets a lot of the signed cards. Like, for example, we went to Topolino's Terrace and it's a character breakfast when you go there in the morning. They don't sign at the tables, but they present you with a little card. So we got two of them because I had two kiddos. So we brought it home and we put it in a little frame. So it says fun on the Riviera and it's got all the pictures of all the friends that we saw. And then down below, you can see that it's got the Riviera Resort, which is where Topolino's Terrace is. And then it's got all of their signatures. So you can do things like this with their different cards that they get depending. And you can always ask the attendant for a second one if you've only got one kiddo, but you want to do some sort of a frame like that, or even just a book. Depending on how you want to set it up, you can always ask for another one. The cast members with those cards are typically not going to have a problem with that. But doing like a scrap with those cards are typically not going to have a problem with that. But doing like a scrapbook or like a photo album of those cards is another fun way. Because then you could also incorporate in the same book with them, maybe little note cards or something like that. So again, tons of different options that you can do for character signatures. And again, it's inexpensive in the fact that you don't have to pay for the signature. However, you do have to pay to get to the parks. So I get that that's maybe not totally inexpensive when it comes to collections for your kiddos, but that is a fun thing that you can collect if you're already going to be there. It's a really great option for your kiddo. And again, then you can kind of treat it like a scavenger hunt and pick out the characters that you want to try to collect at every park whenever you go. Okay, so those are a few options for more in the parks, a little easier on the wallet when it comes to collections. But the next two that we're going to talk about kind of go hand in hand. So I'm going to talk about them a little bit together, and they are another park collectible that a lot of people enjoy, and that is popcorn buckets and collectible sippers that they have in the parks. So this is exclusive to purchasing in the Disney parks. Occasionally, if you're at like Goodwill or flea markets down in the Orlando area, you might find some of these that have been donated from people who don't want them anymore. But most of the time, they're going to be something that you have to purchase in the parks. They have tons of collectible designs and characters. It's a little tricky to see what's out currently before you go on your trip. So you may just kind of have to take a look around and hope you like something that you see if that's a collection that you want. But they do also have seasonal and special offerings for things like Halloween and Christmas. The Epcot festivals almost always have a popcorn bucket. A lot of the festivals in DCA, like their food and wine. May the 4th always has certain popcorn buckets available. So different times will give you different options when it comes to collecting popcorn buckets and the sippers as well. As far as the popcorn buckets go, this is one of the ones that I have. It is a little skyliner from the 50th anniversary. I liked this design because it's really easy to get in and out of for my little kiddo hands. So that's why we liked this one. There are lots of other ones that are not as easy and they have a lot of little like awkward nooks and crannies. They may look really cute, but they may not be super functional. So something to decide is whether or not you want to use it physically as a popcorn bucket or if you'd rather just have it for something to display. So something to keep in mind. The thing I liked about the popcorn buckets and a lot of the sippers too is they come with this really nice like lanyard strap and we could just hook it on the back of our stroller, and then my kids had access to it all day if we were snacking on popcorn, so that's a really nice perk, to have in the parks. And as far as the popcorn buckets go, they are refillable. Now, the sippers, unfortunately, are not, but the popcorn buckets are refillable. Typically, the buckets start around 14.50 and can go up anywhere of close to 30-ish, $35, depending on what you're looking for and depending on how much of a specialty item it is that you're looking for. Some of the event ones are going to be closer to that 30 range. Um, the refills after you have consumed your first round of popcorn, because the popcorn is included at that price, are 225. And keep in mind that standard popcorn is around $7 per box in the parks. So you can do the math on whether or not that's a good investment for your family. And you can also then do the math on whether it's a good investment for you to have for a collection, right? I have, I think, three popcorn buckets. I have this one and I have two Christmas ones that I bought at one of the parties, and I had a friend bought me the other one at one of the other parties as well. And you can ask for the popcorn outside of the bucket. So if you are not wanting to get the bucket dirty, you're not wanting to actually physically put the popcorn in there to eat out of, you can ask the cast member to give you the popcorn on the side and they will do that no problem. However, do keep in mind that they will need to see the bucket, the refill bucket, in order to give you the refill price on future purchases of your popcorn. So keep that in mind. Occasionally, cast members are fine with you showing a receipt as long as they can see that the date is like that same day or within a few days. But most of the time, they're going to want to be able to see that popcorn bucket that you have with you. Um, the one thing about popcorn buckets, they can be tricky to take home if you are flying to and from the parks. So you may just need to make a plan on how you're either going to fit it in your luggage or how you're going to get it home as a carry-on when it comes to going home. So something to keep in mind. A shape like this is a little bit easier to manage than some of the bigger ones that we've seen, but maybe you have a plan and you have a space. I know a lot of people, when they go, they'll put maybe some consumables in part of their suitcase and then plan to fill that with their souvenirs. And maybe a popcorn bucket is planned to go in there on your way home. So just make a plan when it comes to that. Now, the sippers, again, like I said, a lot of the time these two go hand in hand. The popcorn buckets are fully refillable. I think they're a much better value, but there are some really, really cute character and themed sippers that you can get. And basically a sipper is just like a character cup with a straw that you can purchase in the parks that is a specialty item. Tons of different characters. And again, these are offered at similar times to like what I was talking about with the popcorn buckets. So you're going to find them at festivals. You're going to find them during holidays, those types of things. Or where you're going to find the sippers. The sippers cost anywhere, generally speaking, depending on size, from $17 to $22. And again, there are no refill options. It does come with your beverage inside, whatever that may be that they're offering. And again, they can be tricky to take home on the plane, so something to consider. But oftentimes they'll have like pairings when it comes to this. So like you'll find a Pumbaa popcorn bucket and a Timon sipper that kind of go together, those types of things. You may want to look at the character options to decide whether or not it's something that you want to collect. A lot of people will display these on shelves, depending on if they're planning to use them or display them. So lots of different options for that collection. Again, this is probably more of a family investment rather than an individual investment if we're talking about collections when it comes to popcorn buckets, because chances are good if you're buying a popcorn bucket, you're probably going to share your popcorn with your family. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you're a huge popcorn fanatic and you don't want to. So that is your option for that. Um, One other thing that I want to talk about, well, a few other things, but one other thing that is a good option for in park that you can get for collections for your kiddos. And this one is actually completely free to collect. So we talked about that with the character autographs and with the pressed pennies being a little bit less expensive. But park maps is something that my family really enjoys collecting, especially my oldest. And he is one that he loves to be our navigator and he loves to have the paper map. He does it when we go to the zoo, when we go to aquariums, anywhere that we go. He wants to have a map. So he always grabs park maps at the beginning of the park when you go in. You can also grab them often if you're staying on property at your Disney resort front desk, like the concierge area will typically have park maps as well. So they are a super simple collection. They're really easy to find and it's a really easy one to do with your kids. Something kind of fun that you could consider with this is after you've collected all of the English maps, pick another language that maybe you're interested in looking at and you can compare ride names and park names and different terms for things across the different languages, which is kind of a fun little way to get a little bit of a culture lesson while you're down there, especially in Epcot, right? You can definitely take a look at all the different countries they have in Epcot and the different maps that they have available in those languages. The thing about collecting maps that is super fun is that you can bring them home as a tangible, physical option that they can maybe keep on a bookshelf in their room, or you can use them as a display. So there's lots of different things that you can do with the maps depending on the purpose of them. You can put them together with special prints from parties and events. We've done that before. Or my husband one year for me took all of our maps from the 50th anniversary year and he matted them and framed them for me. And whoops, this hangs behind my desk where I do my work. So a super fun way that you can do that. So you can also just grab duplicates. So if your kiddos want to look at one, but you want to keep one nice and neat for something like that, stash one in your bag and let them have one in the parks because you know that one in the parks is probably going to get torn or wet or stepped on or dropped. So grab a couple if that's something that you want to do with them. You can also search online for maps from the different parks around the world. If you've got friends that are visiting different parks, if someone's heading to Disneyland Paris and you want to ask them to grab you some, or Tokyo or wherever, you can go on a search to have some of those so you can compare and contrast different rides and things like that. If you've got a kiddo that's really into that, that's something super fun that you could do for them to help kind of boost up their collection of these park maps. And again, then you're just paying a little bit for the shipping. So it's not, if you're looking to extend outside of the United States parks, you might pay a little bit of shipping, but the maps themselves are free to grab from those parks. The other thing that you can do if you want to make it more of like a family souvenir collection option is depending on how often you go, like let's say you go maybe once a year or once every other year, you can take a map and you can mark the favorite rides from everybody from that trip on that map. And that then becomes like a snapshot in time from your trip. So you can look back and see, oh, when we went back in 2000, these were the rides that we all liked to do. Oh, then when we went in 2004, this is how it changed because you got older and you liked to do more thrill rides now, whatever it may be for your particular situation. But that could be a fun little way that you can kind of make it more of a family souvenir or a family collection is if you take those. And then you can scrapbook them, you can frame them and hang them. There's lots of different things you can do with them depending on how you want to display them and how you want to keep them. That would be a good option that you would have for that as well. So I think maps is a super underrated but a really fun collection that you could do with any age, right? There's ways to implement that for littles, and there's ways to implement that for your older teen kiddos that might be going with you to the parks. Another option for something that is in the parks that you can collect are magnets. So we talked a little bit earlier about pins. There are ways that you can actually make pins into magnets, but there are also tons of different magnet options that you can purchase in the park. It's a really small collection, and chances are good you've got a good amount of fridge space to display them, or maybe the back of a front door or garage door. I know ours are magnetic. My kids love to play with their magnet tiles on them, but you can use some of your souvenir collection budget on magnets. They are sold in nearly every gift shop on property. They're a really great snapshot in time if you let your kiddo pick out their favorite character or let them just pick out which magnet they want. It can be a fun way to see how their tastes change as they grow. Again, this is kind of another one of those where you can kind of, use it as benchmarks depending on how often you get to go. Or you can just grab a generic parks one for every trip or one that's got a year on it. There are so many different designs and character options for park magnets. Um, you can find some really easy ones that are like character-based, cartoony, or they have some nicer metal ones as well, depending on what your tastes are, depending on what you're looking for. They can be park related, ride related, character related, land related, movie related. So many different options. So many different options. So again, I'll pull back out. You guys know I love Tubi. So like this is one that I bought. They do have these ones that are like character, the thin kind of flexible magnets as well. And this one lives on my fridge. So lots of different options when it comes to magnets. And the nice thing about magnets is their prices are fairly inexpensive. So they range anywhere from 5-ish to about 15-ish, depending on how elaborate or how big the designs are, or if they're like for a specialty event or something like that, you may find them to be a little bit more expensive. It just really depends. So that's another really easy, fun one. Like I said, you can literally find magnets across the entire Disney property. They're super easy to find. So lots of different options when it comes to collecting if that's something that you want to do when it comes to magnets. Kind of in the same family, I guess, so to speak, is Christmas ornaments. This is one that we do with our kids. I don't know that we don't necessarily consider it a collection, but it is something that we do with our kiddos. And every year we gift them a Christmas ornament. And because we are a Disney family, it just happens that every year that is a Disney themed Christmas ornament. But this is a really great one, and it's really practical because chances are you've got some space on a Christmas tree. So give your kiddos their own ornament that they get to put up on the tree, and it can be a surprise, it can be something you buy together. You have complete control over how you want to build that collection for them. The nice thing is, so you can find Christmas ornaments year round at Disney, whether you're going to Disney World or Disneyland. Both places have a space, at least one space that you can find Christmas ornaments year round. So at Disney World, you're going to be looking at the Christmas shop in Magic Kingdom is one spot. And then also there's a whole Christmas shop in Disney Springs. Now, other parks may also have Christmas ornaments in different places, but those are like the two main places at Disney World that you can find Christmas ornaments year round. At Disneyland, at the Plaza Point, uh, I almost called it a restaurant because the Plaza Inn is a restaurant. Let me try that again. At Disneyland, you can find Christmas ornaments at the Plaza Point shop. That's where you're going to want to head if you are looking for them and it's not Christmas time. So year round, those are places that you can find them. A lot of these places will often have people that can personalize ornaments for a fee. So they can add names, they can add years, things like that, if that's something that you want to do. You can find glass ornaments, ceramic. You can find child-safe plastic ornaments as well. So lots of different options. They can be characters, again, characters. They can be just generic Disney. They can be ride-based. They can be all sorts of different things. Prices for ornaments are generally $25 to $30 per ornament. Our family, because we know that we're doing ornaments each year, and we have a couple staples that like we know that our kids are going to like this character or this movie for the next several years in a row. We actually buy our ornaments for the next year right after. We actually buy our ornaments for the next year right after Christmas when everything's on clearance and on sale. So that's a really good way to do that if you're not going to be in the parks purchasing together. You can check out even now, this is, we're recording this in the middle of March. Even now, the Disney store has some clearance ornaments still on their website. So there are ways to do it for a little bit cheaper because $25 to $30 per ornament, depending on how many kiddos you're buying for, may or may not be something that your budget can handle. So different places that you can look for that. You can also find Disney ornaments at places like Hallmark and Target and Walmart and things like that. Depending on what you're looking for, what style you're looking for, what characters you're looking for, you may get lucky with something a little bit less expensive than the Disney parks ornaments if that is if they have what you're looking for. So again, that's another option that you can buy in the parks, but it also is something that you could get outside of the parks if you want to. Okay, I think I have reached my final category that I'm going to talk about in this episode. Again, I'm not talking about everything you could possibly collect. These are just some of the options that I wanted to present in this episode. And after we chat about this, we will talk briefly about my suggestions for which of these are best for which age group. So that's coming up in just a minute. Okay, this is the last category of suggestions that I have for this episode. And that is something that is actually more often sold outside of the parks, and that is Funko Pops. So this is something that I think can be a really fun collection to have for kiddos because you can use them as decor in their rooms. They can pick out different options of what types they want if they want to do certain franchises, certain fandoms, lots of different options. The possibilities are endless when it comes to Funko Pops. And they can be purchased a ton of places, which is really nice and convenient. It's a lot more accessible if you're not going to be at the Disney parks all the time. So they do things like Star Wars collections, they have Marvel collections, they do all sorts of different fandoms. They have, Mickey and Minnie and lots of different variations, Pooh Bear characters. Again, the list goes on and on and on and on. Again, the really nice thing is that you can find them so many places. You can find them at Target, Walmart. There are places online. If you've got GameStop, various bookstores, Best Buy, Five Below, all sorts of places. A list, again, goes on and on and on and on and on about where you can purchase Funko Pops. They have lots of different sizes and different options and different price points, which again makes it another kind of easily accessible option for your kiddos depending on age and budget. So they have little small mystery packs that will give you Funko Pops that are about this big, and those are about $4. They have keychains that are similar in size, but on a keychain for about $5. Your regular Funko Pops that you typically see out standard size are going to cost you around 12. And then they also have like big, huge, supersized ones that are 25, 30, $40 as well. So again, size matters. Like we talked about that with the plushies. There are lots of different size options for Funko Pops as well. Again, these are a super fun way to have a displayable collection without needing to go to the parks. One of my favorite collections that I have, and I didn't grab it off the shelf because it's a little bit too much for me to hold, is they came out with about 4 years ago, they came out with a people mover option for Funko Pops. And it's 4 little characters all in little people mover cars. And it's like Minnie, Mickey, and Pluto and Goofy, I think, are in that one. But I collected all 4 of them because I thought that was such a fun little set to have. This is another one that I have that's one of my favorite is this Walt Funko Pop of Walt in his train, and I love ooh, I'm weird. Here we go. I love the little hidden Mickey that's over here. So this is a Funko Pop as well. So you kind of know from the typical face look of the Funko Pops, they have that eye, right? The black kind of dot eyes when it comes to that. But this is one of the ones that I have. I have quite a few. My husband also has quite a few. He really is into Star Wars and Marvel. So those are two kind of he's got a couple from those collections that we have. Um but the nice thing again is that it's a really nice displayable collection that you can have without needing to go to the parks. We threw up a couple shelves in our house, and that's where we display a lot of our Funko Pops that we have. We like some of the smaller ones. They're a lot easier to display in little rows on our shelves, which is kind of fun. Another option, though, is if you do collect Funko Pops and you are going to take them into the parks, you could take them and have them autographed if that's something that you wanted to do as well. Or you could get little cards autographed and put them with your Funko Pops if you have them in boxes or displayed on shelves. Another way that you can kind of combine those two if that's something that you are interested in doing. I know a lot of people that will have, voices of characters or actors or things like that sign the boxes of their Funko Pops of the characters that they have. So there's lots of different ways that you can utilize that. And if you've got certain Funko Pops that you want to keep in box, they have little cases you can buy. The list goes on and on of different ways that you can kind of store and keep and display different Funko Pops. Again, the internet is your friend when it comes to searching for different ideas for Funko Pop collections. But just wanted to mention that as my last category because I think it's a super fun way to have a collection without needing to collect something that is in the parks, which a lot of the things that we did mention earlier are things that you're going to get in the parks or you're going to maybe get to go to the parks like ears and lounge flies, things like that. So Funko Pop is a nice kind of option if you're not going to be able to get to the parks anytime soon. Okay, so that all being said, let's talk about which of these options are best for kids, right? I gave you a lot of information. I gave you a quick rundown of those different categories, but which ones are best for kids? So this is Jackie's opinion on which of these I would think would be best for you to start with your particular kiddos. So kind of two categories I'm looking at here. If you've got younger kiddos, maybe you're looking preschool, early elementary, like kindergarten, first, maybe second grade and down is kind of where I'm talking now. I really think your best option, again, depending on age, depending on your kiddo, my opinion, is plushies, character autographs, and pressed pennies. I think those three are really great options for that age group. Your younger ones, the plushies are going to be their big one that they want to have, right? But the fun thing is you can start their autograph collection when they're that little as well. So something that you can do with that. And the pressed pennies are so much fun. So much fun for the kiddos to get to work the machine, to get to pick out the design that they want, to get several of them throughout your trip is really fun because it kind of keeps their eye out for that, gives them something to look for as you're walking around the parks, which is another fun thing that you can do with that. So again, plushies, autographs, and pressed pennies would be my top 3 suggestions for younger kiddos. Now, if you've got some older elementary and preteen kids that are going with you on your trip that you're looking for collections, again, some of these, it really depends on your budget, and some of these, it really depends on your kid. But my top 3 suggestions would be ears, because I think they're a super fun accessory to wear. There's lots of different places you can find them for where they're on sale, and your preteen may have fun doing Disney bounding or theming outfits for the parks with their ears. So ears would be on that list for me. Pins would be on that list for me for pin trading. Again, trying to find them for a little cheaper if you can, so it doesn't completely break the bank. And then press pennies for them as well. I just think after I did this research, I'm like, man, I am missing the boat on these pressed pennies. I think it's such a fun time capsule to have and such a fun thing to bring home when it comes to your collecting. If especially if you're going to be visiting the parks frequently, you can kind of work through that collection little by little until you get, quite a few of them. So, my top picks for older elementary and preteen kiddos would be ears, pins, and pressed pennies. So that is kind of in a nutshell Disney collections. Did I talk about everything you can collect? No, absolutely not. But this was kind of my focus for things that I thought would be good for kids, for younger ones, or for parents to maybe start the collection for their kids, or like family collections. We talked about all of those things in this episode. So if you've got suggestions for other collections or other things that you want us to talk about here at Mom Street USA, we would love to hear from you. You can always find us momstreetusa@gmail.com if email is your jam. If you'd rather reach out to us via social media, you can find us at Mom Street USA on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. You're welcome to leave us comments or send us messages on any of those platforms. Coming up next for Mom Street USA, we are headed back to the hub. So we are going to be doing another hub episode with our friends Duck and Jess. I believe we're going to be maybe tiptoeing into some Universal, but we'll see what they have planned for our next episode. But that is what is coming next. But for now, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Mom Street USA. Your support means the world to us, and I'm so glad that you are here and continuing to listen. If you are listening to us on any of the places where you can see the video after the fact, YouTube, Spotify, any of the other video podcast places, leave me a comment. Let me know which of these collections you think would be best for your particular kids, or which ones you say, absolutely not, I cannot afford to do that, or that's not for me. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to that. But for now, that is it for this episode of Mom Street USA. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.